I betrayed my husband's trust and lost him completely. He won't even let me touch him anymore. I'm in a difficult situation, and I'm curious if anyone has been through something similar. Unlike most stories, I'm not the victim here. My husband, children, and parents are the ones suffering the consequences of my past mistakes, for which I am genuinely remorseful. Let me be completely honest. About 19 months ago, I was discovered having an affair with a married neighbor who was also a father of 3. I'm a 32-year-old woman. My husband is 39, and the neighbor, let's call him Steve for privacy, was 27 at the time. My affair with Steve was a terrible decision, one that started a little over 2 years ago and lasted for nearly 5 months before being exposed. Despite the length of the affair, I was only physically involved with Steve 4 times. I know this may be hard to believe, but it's the truth. Now, to answer the obvious questions, was I unhappy in my marriage? Did I stop loving my husband? Were we having problems? The answer to all of these is a firm no. I was completely satisfied in my marriage and deeply in love with my husband and our 2 boys, aged 9 and 11. Jim, my husband, met all my emotional, mental, and physical needs. He was everything I ever dreamed of in a partner. My attraction to Steve wasn't due to any lack in my marriage. It was misplaced and rooted in an intense, almost primal urge, reminiscent of my first romantic encounter at 18. Back in high school, I had a few brief, innocent relationships. Just a few quick kisses with boys I considered friends. But everything changed when I met Charles at a friend's family barbecue. Charles was my friend's cousin, and from the moment we locked eyes, I was captivated. I was 18, he was 20, and there was an undeniable spark between us. We exchanged numbers, met the next day, and ended up sharing a passionate connection. Looking back, my relationship with Charles was purely physical. There was no real compatibility between us, and after 11 months, the passion faded, and I ended things. A year later, I met my husband, Jim. He was everything I wanted: kind, reliable, and loving. We married a year later and enjoyed 13 years of happiness, blessed with 2 amazing sons who are just like their father. But I ruined it all. Steve and his wife, Marcia, moved into our neighborhood, becoming the youngest couple around. My husband and I were the second youngest, while most of our neighbors were in their 60s. Our families connected at a neighborhood picnic, where Steve and I first noticed each other, just like how I first met Charles. The second time I saw Steve was at the dealership where he worked in finance. We were shopping for a new SUV, and my husband struck up a conversation with him. Steve helped us secure a great deal, but there were lingering glances between us that my husband didn't catch. Things escalated quickly. A few days later, I returned to the dealership for some minor upgrades on the SUV, and Steve and I ended up alone in his office. He confessed his feelings. And though I admitted it was wrong, I also admitted feeling the same. Our connection was undeniable. The very next morning, after our kids were at school and our spouses were at work, I went to Steve's house, and that's when our affair began. Over the course of 5 months, we were only physically involved 4 times. There was no emotional bond between us. I loved Jim, and Steve loved Marcia. What we had was purely physical, thrilling because it was forbidden. In hindsight, being a stay-at-home mom for 11 years had left me craving attention. And Steve, being a younger, attractive man, fulfilled that in a dangerous way. I naively thought I could keep this secret affair while maintaining my loving marriage with Jim. But that illusion shattered 19 months ago on a Thursday morning when Marcia's mother caught Steve and me together in his house. She walked in on us, screamed profanities, and physically attacked both of us, scratching Steve's face and pulling out chunks of my hair. Humiliated and shaken, I barely managed to gather my clothes and leave. I went home in shock, overwhelmed by the reality of what I'd done. My perfect marriage with Jim was now in jeopardy, and I was paralyzed with guilt. I tried to contact Jim, leaving him an urgent message and a text, but received no response. Moments later, Marcia and her mother arrived at my house, pounding on the door and shouting through the windows. I was too ashamed to face them. Fortunately, my boys were at school and didn't witness the chaos. After they left, I collapsed on the couch, sobbing. I must have dozed off because I woke up to the sound of a car in the driveway. Jim had come home. I rushed to freshen up, trying to compose. Through the window, I saw him walking towards Steve and Marcia's house. He stayed there for almost 3 hours before finally returning home. As soon as he walked in, I tried to embrace him, but he pushed me away. I began apologizing, but he cut me off, telling me that my apology was meaningless and insisting that I leave. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing and pleading, saying I didn't want to go, but he remained firm. He then called my mother, informed her of what I had done, and asked her to come and get me. When my mother arrived, she apologized to Steve, persuaded me to spend the night at her place, and helped me pack some clothes. As I left, I was overwhelmed with shame and despair, asking Jim what he would tell our kids. He simply replied that he would handle it. That night, I called Jim, and to my surprise, he answered. He said nothing at first, just a quiet, "Hello." I identified myself, apologized once again, and promised I would never repeat my mistake. I swore to dedicate the rest of my life to making it up to him. Jim remained silent, only asking if I had anything else to say. When I told him I didn't, I asked about his feelings. He responded that he was aware of what he was feeling, which made me burst into tears. He then told me to stay with my parents for a few weeks before coming home. Reluctantly, I agreed, but asked when I could see him and the boys. He said he didn't want to see me right now, but agreed to a brief phone call every evening at 9 p.m. The first call ended with me saying, "I love you," to which Jim responded with silence before hanging up. The next night's call went the same way. Me apologizing and Jim remaining quiet. But then he dropped a bombshell. He wanted a divorce. Hearing this, I broke down, begging for another chance. He refused, saying he knew he would lose half of his hard-earned assets, but didn't care. Unexpectedly, he added that he would give me everything he owned if I just disappeared and left him and the boys alone. I was devastated, insisting he didn't mean that, but he assured me he did. We ended the call, and I cried all night. Desperate, I began thinking of ways to convince him to stay. Finally, I came up with a plan, a post-nuptial agreement so favorable that he couldn't refuse it. All I wanted was another chance to prove my love, no matter the cost. While Jim was meeting with his divorce attorney the following week, I consulted my own lawyer, not to prepare for a divorce, but to draft a post-nuptial agreement. I visited 4 different attorneys before finding one who specialized in post-nuptial agreements and was willing to create one heavily in Jim's favor. Unfortunately, Jim's lawyer finalized the divorce papers in just 11 days, and I was served at my parents' house 2 days later. I immediately had Jim served with the proposed post-nuptial agreement. That night, we talked after he read it. He seemed surprised by what I was offering, and for the first time, I caught a glimpse of the caring person I once knew, not the cold, emotionless man he had become. The agreement was entirely in Jim's favor, giving him nearly all our marital assets if we stayed married for at least 30 months. If I ever cheated again, I would forfeit any claim to our assets, receive no alimony or child support, and gain nothing. The agreement also required me to secure a full-time job within 6 months and contribute to household expenses. Additionally, Jim would be free to see other women if he wished, though I knew that was against his nature. I included this clause to show him how deeply I loved him and how committed I was to making things right. To my surprise and relief, Jim accepted the offer, but with one additional condition. He would have no obligation to share a bed with me or engage in any form of physical intimacy. Though it broke my heart, I agreed, hoping that in time I could regain his trust, respect, and affection. But things haven't gone as I imagined. We are now 17 and a half months into what I call our second marriage, but it feels more like we are simply housemates raising our boys together. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful every day for this second chance, but this doesn't feel like a true marriage. Since the affair, Jim has shown me no affection, no hugs, no kisses, nothing. Even when I try to initiate a hug or a quick kiss, he pulls away. The only touch we share is when I barely manage a hug before he moves out of reach. Jim also insists that I undergo monthly at-home STD testing. He refuses to be seen with me in public, not even at family gatherings. When our boys have games, we take turns attending. And if it's my turn, Jim shows up but stands apart, blending in with the other fathers and avoiding me completely. The only time we go out together is when we leave town, but even then, it feels like 2 strangers traveling side by side. During vacations, which we often take when we travel, he usually books adjacent rooms, each with 2 queen beds. The boys stay in one room, and we occupy the other, sleeping in separate beds. I eagerly anticipate every trip because these moments bring us closer, and I've almost managed to connect with him on a deeper level. I confided in Jim about this and proposed that we relocate from our neighborhood to start anew. However, Jim said he would only consider moving if he received a job promotion that required relocation. Otherwise, he intends to stay until our sons graduate from high school. The boys also resist moving since all their friends are nearby, as are Jim's friends. Since the affair, I've lost all my friendships in the community. Stephen and Marcia divorced 8 months after the discovery day, but Marcia and her children still live on our street. The women I used to be close to have cut ties with me, blaming me for tearing the family apart. Now, my home feels like a prison, and I rarely venture outside, choosing instead to stay indoors or tend to my garden in the backyard. My boys are often out with their friends in the neighborhood, including Mara and Stephen's kids. Thankfully, their social world hasn't shifted much. Jim follows a similar pattern, spending evenings with neighborhood men, smoking cigars and sipping bourbon, either at our home or theirs after work. The men enjoy unwinding together. Jim's routine consists of going to work, hitting the gym, then coming home, usually avoiding the dinners I prepare. On weekends, he grills and eats only what he cooks himself, steering clear of my meals. Evening dinners with my sons during the week have become a valuable bonding time. We eat around 4 p.m. when they return from school, with them helping to set the table, finish food prep, and clean up. This shared time has drawn us closer and taught them important skills, even in the garden, where we've created a wonderful space together. In summary, some aspects of my life are wonderful, while others are painful. I'm uncertain whether this marriage is worth preserving as it stands, or if I should let Jim go now and offer him financial support. Deep inside, I know he's unhappy and no longer sees me as his wife or lover, just as a co-parent. I love Jim dearly and will carry the weight of my mistakes for the rest of my life. I want to restore the loving relationship we once had, but I doubt he'll let me. Please share your thoughts on what I should do. I would truly appreciate any advice on how to regain my husband's love and trust after betraying him so openly. Thank you, Amy. Update. Last month, I followed the advice and decided to temporarily move out of the house to give our marriage some breathing room. I rented a furnished apartment nearby and have been living there since. While I miss being with Jim and the boys, and I miss my gardens, it's a relief to be away from the neighborhood. There are too many painful memories and bad vibes there, all of which I acknowledge are my fault. I'm not making excuses for what I did. When I told Jim about my decision, he seemed surprised and somewhat saddened, asking many questions. His reaction revealed a lot, showing me he still loves me. I could see it in his eyes. I pick up my sons after school, and they come over to my apartment for dinner and spend the night a few days a week. Jim and I are flexible about this, and the boys can move freely between our homes. The biggest challenge now is that living apart means I don't see Jim often, and I'm not in a position to have meaningful conversations with him face to face. So I end up calling him, asking silly questions multiple times a week just to stay connected. We've had several long talks recently, another sign that he still cares. I know I love him. That's all for now. Thanks, and take care. Update. What a journey life has been, like a roller coaster with its highs and lows. Unfortunately, 2 years into our second marriage, Jim decided that divorce is the best path forward. He said he still loves me and might want to rekindle a romantic relationship someday, but believes it's difficult to do while we're married. He explained that psychologically, he feels disrespected and betrayed during marriage, but thinks those feelings will fade after the divorce. Jim suggested celebrating our divorce once it's finalized, possibly even spending the night together. Although that may sound unusual, I'm willing to try if it means keeping Jim in my life as a partner, lover, and friend. Jim made it clear that even if we reconnect, we won't remarry. He believes a legal contract isn't necessary if true love exists. I agree, though I wish there were a way to heal our relationship without ending the marriage. Regarding the divorce, I've decided to let him keep 34% of our shared assets voluntarily, even though he doesn't meet the postnuptial agreement terms. I won't seek alimony or child support. Some may see me as generous, but I believe he earned that money and would have given it all to me if I'd remained faithful. I'm at peace with this choice and can live comfortably for at least 8 years without working. Currently, I'm employed, so financially, things are even better. To women struggling with temptation like I did, my advice is to resist. The excitement isn't worth the risk. If it's hard to control yourself, seek professional help. From my experience, the short-term thrill isn't worth losing love, respect, and trust in the long run. Another story. I'm a 32-year-old man married to Kat. We've been together for 4 years, 2 dating and 2 married. Recently, things haven't gone well between us. The trouble began 2 months ago when my wife proposed we open our marriage to add excitement. I was shocked by her suggestion. I never expected it. To clarify, I'm not trying to control her, but considering our history, it's hard for me to believe she genuinely wants to try this. Let's face it, open marriages are risky and often end up hurting one or both partners. I clearly told her that I'm uncomfortable with the idea of an open marriage. It's not that I'm opposed to trying new things or adding excitement to our married life, but I want those experiences to remain within the limits of a committed marriage without involving a third party. She felt disappointed because it's rare for me to refuse her requests. I love her deeply and usually accommodate her wishes, even if it means making sacrifices. Although she didn't say much after our discussion, I could tell she was unhappy. I wanted to understand her perspective better and find out why she felt this way. I started doubting my own abilities in intimacy and wanted to talk to her, but she stayed silent. Kat works as a consultant and often has a demanding schedule, dealing with different time zones that disrupt her work-life balance. I also have a busy job, but it doesn't require me to work outside our time zone, making my routine easier. Because of her hectic work hours, I wasn't able to bring up my concerns. I blamed myself for hastily saying no and thought I should have asked for more details before making a decision. I felt awful. Nearly 2 weeks later, I came home early one day and cooked her favorite dinner. She appreciated the gesture, and we hugged and enjoyed some quality time together. Taking advantage of the moment, I asked her again about her idea of an open marriage. She quickly got upset and accused me of playing mind games. I wasn't trying to manipulate her. I just wanted to connect and understand her viewpoint. That's when I got frustrated with her accusations and asked directly if I wasn't fulfilling her needs. Then, she finally opened up. She told me about some interns at her office, fresh out of college and in their early 20s, who party frequently and casually date multiple people. Their wild stories had planted the idea of an open marriage in her mind. She confessed feeling a fear of missing out when hearing about her young coworkers' exciting lifestyles. I listened and tried to see things from her side. It's natural to be tempted by such things sometimes. I told her I wasn't comfortable with the open marriage concept because I deeply value our relationship and what we share. Before meeting Kat, I also led a wild life in my 20s, doing similar things, but I faced the emotional ups and downs that come with it. That excitement eventually faded, leaving a feeling of emptiness. After meeting Kat, I found comfort and didn't want to return to that past life. We got married, and she was the person I pictured building a family with and growing old alongside. I shared my honest thoughts about open marriage, suggesting we reconsider only if she was genuinely interested. She immediately denied it, but seemed to understand my position. I thought she agreed with me during our conversation, but I was wrong. Everything seemed fine for a few days, but after about a week, her behavior shifted dramatically. She became cold and said it was because of work stress. Lately, she's been acting terribly, throwing tantrums over small things and mocking me for being outdated. When I asked what she meant, she said, "I'm too stubborn and resistant to change, not keeping up with current trends." I asked her what trends she was referring to since I keep up with fashion, music, and web shows. She just nodded silently when I questioned if my refusal to try an open marriage upset her, which left me confused. Meanwhile, her work hours got longer and more erratic. Initially, it was just a few days a month, but now she's coming home late nearly every other day, sometimes even at dawn. When I confronted her about it, she said she's aiming for a promotion and proving her dedication. While I admire her ambition, I'm concerned about the reality of the situation. Honestly, I'm hesitant to let negative thoughts take over or jump to conclusions. Yesterday, something happened that made me want to share my feelings and ask for advice. I got home earlier than usual and decided to make Kat's favorite lasagna for dinner. Even though she had plans to stay late, I wanted to surprise her. I messaged her, and she said she'd probably be home after midnight, which dampened my enthusiasm. I spent the next hour playing video games, hungry but hoping to have dinner with her. Impulsively, I decided to pick her up from work, something I'd never done before, unless we had plans afterward. I thought it would be a nice surprise. I rushed to her office, a standalone building that's easy to find, and waited outside for 30 to 45 minutes. It was 12:30 a.m., but Kat never appeared. Worried, I went inside to ask at the reception. The office was still busy with night shift workers, and the receptionist told me Kat had already left. I regretted my decision and drove home, only to find she wasn't there either. Concerned for her safety, cheating wasn't on my mind. I just worried about her well-being. It was too late to contact any of Kat's coworkers, and since she had joined the company only 6 months ago, I didn't have their numbers. Feeling uncertain and exhausted, I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up at sunrise, I went to my room on impulse and found Kat sleeping peacefully in bed. I tucked her in and went back to sleep. The next morning, as she prepared for work, I asked when she came home last night. She said around 3 a.m., after a busy day, including a meeting with an Asian client. Curious, I asked when she left the office. She casually replied around 2:30 a.m., which shocked me. This meant either the receptionist gave me false information about her not being there at 12:30 a.m., or Kat lied about staying until 2:30 a.m. Feeling overwhelmed by the previous night's stress, I didn't press her further. Later that afternoon, she called to ask if I had gone to her office. The receptionist had informed her about my midnight visit. I wondered why the receptionist was working such unusual hours, but explained why I went there. She was quiet for a moment before explaining that she had left her office in the afternoon to attend a meeting at her client's U.S. branch located in another part of the city. This clarified why she wasn't at her desk when I checked. I found her explanation puzzling. She went on to say that her client was an Asian company with a U.S. office, and she often joined Zoom calls with employees working in the Asian time zone. Although this is a common practice globally, I still felt unsettled about my own situation. I was lost and unsure of what to do next. Should I wait for things to calm down or confront Kat again with my suspicions? I had confronted her several times before. Any advice or suggestions would be welcome. Update: I just received some shocking information. Please bear with me as I vent. I tried various methods to access Kat's emails and phone password, but she kept them strictly private. I struggled to find a way to uncover the truth, but failed. Over the past 2 weeks, Kat continued coming home late from work, and we exchanged cold, distant looks, barely speaking, except for the occasional brief and transactional conversation. 2 days ago, she was on the phone with her mother, who has been battling kidney issues for years, and her latest blood test results were poor. While she lay in bed talking to her mom, I, out of concern, took her phone to check on her mother. As she described her exhausting schedule of tests and medications, something clicked in my mind. I glanced at the unlocked phone screen and saw chat notifications. I stood up and casually followed her into the bathroom while she was still on the call, and she locked the door. I put the phone on speaker, pretending to listen and read the messages from the notifications. The notifications revealed that Kat was supposed to meet someone that day for a fun outing. I checked her social media messages and, as I suspected, she was having an affair. She was involved with several inexperienced coworkers. After a few minutes, she realized I had taken her phone into the bathroom and began knocking on the door, demanding it back. I didn't have time to read all the conversations thoroughly, so I quickly scanned her photo gallery for undeniable proof. Her gallery was filled with explicit photos of my beautiful wife in compromising situations with her coworkers. I emailed the pictures to myself and deleted the history. She was cheating on me with multiple colleagues. I felt physically sick and nearly vomited. Meanwhile, my wife kept knocking, begging for her phone back. Unable to bear her persistent voice, I unlocked the door, handed her the phone, and locked the bathroom again. Initially, I wanted to rush out and confront her immediately, but instead, I calmed myself and let the anger subside. The chat notifications included details about the time and place they planned to meet that day. Leaving the bathroom, I grabbed my car keys and drove to the location. As I left the house, she faintly called my name, but I ignored her. At the hotel, I chose the darkest corner in the lobby, not to make a scene, but to observe how comfortably she behaved while heading to her rendezvous. She was supposed to arrive at 5 p.m., and I got there around 3, having already consumed numerous shots. I initially hoped to confront her at home, but maybe I was too numb or unprepared for a direct confrontation, not even in the hotel lobby. By 6 p.m., she hadn't appeared. I suspected she might have sensed my presence and changed plans. I was too intoxicated and exhausted to think clearly, so I kept drinking. Around 7 p.m., I saw Kat arrive. At that moment, my world shattered and my vision blurred. After 4 hours of drinking, I barely remembered what happened next. In autopilot, I staggered to the reception where she was checking in, tapped her on the shoulder, and sarcastically wished her good luck with her fun ride. I might have said more, but that's the gist. She grabbed my hand, trying to explain, but I don't remember her words. I recall shrugging her off, freeing myself from her grasp, and storming out of the hotel. I hailed a cab to my friend's place and passed out at his doorstep. The next thing I recall was waking up on his couch the next afternoon after sleeping for 16 hours straight. It was Sunday afternoon. My friend Lee made me lunch and fresh lemonade. I told him everything. He advised me to freeze our joint accounts, change passwords, and get tested for STDs immediately. For someone betrayed so deeply, money and privacy were minor concerns. I powered on my dead phone, plugged it in, and turned it on. The screen flooded with notifications. 100 missed calls, 50 voicemails, and countless desperate messages. I ignored them all. After a few minutes, her calls and messages restarted. I blocked her on all platforms. I was so disgusted, I didn't even read her messages or emails. Today is Monday. I called in sick for the next few days at work. I don't know how to handle this. I've been drinking heavily and just want to escape it all. I don't know what to do. My friend is looking for some of the best divorce lawyers nearby. Update. I recommended securing our shared accounts, changing passwords on sensitive info, and getting tested for STDs. Thankfully, the results came back negative. Lee helped me find a lawyer, and I shared all the incriminating photos from Kat's phone with him. I'm temporarily staying with Lee until the divorce is finalized, which worked out well since he needed a roommate. During this time, Kat has been trying to contact me, begging for us to reconcile and start anew. She also reached out to Lee, asking for his help to save our marriage. According to her, the affairs were meaningless, and she was merely exploring her desires and trying to feel attractive. I'm uncertain about these Gen Z ideas of desirability and whether any of it is genuine. A few days after my last update, I sent Lee to my house with keys to collect my belongings, hoping Kat would be at work on a regular day. However, Lee found her at home, where she broke down and sought his help. Lee was smart enough to tell her I was staying in a hotel, not at his place, to avoid drama. Kat told Lee she had quit her job. She admitted it all began when interns at work started flirting with her. They made her feel desired and beautiful again, which led her to experiment with different experiences, including illicit ones. Initially, it was a one-time thing, but she became addicted to the excitement. Since the interns didn't earn much, they relied on Kat to cover their expenses. Eventually, she realized they were exploiting her financially, but by then, she was deeply involved in that lifestyle. When Lee asked why she hadn't confessed sooner, Kat claimed she had tried talking to me about opening the marriage, but felt guilty. My refusal prevented her from being honest with me. I find this confusing. What's the point of asking for an open marriage after cheating? Kat is resisting signing the divorce papers and accusing me of pushing her toward these one-night stands, though she has no proof. Now she's demanding alimony, claiming mental anguish caused by the divorce. If anyone deserves compensation, it's me for enduring the pain of betrayal. Later that month, Kat's sister Amy name changed, contacted me, pleading for reconciliation. She said Kat was going through a difficult time, suffering severe depression because the interns damaged her reputation at work. They circulated compromising photos of Kat with them among senior staff, mocking her as an easy target. This gossip made her the focus at the office, forcing her to quit. Senior employees spread the rumors outside the company network, making it hard for Kat to get new job referrals. I reminded Amy that Kat chose to abandon our stable marriage for a thrill and must now face the consequences. Anyway, I'm moving forward with my life. I've controlled my drinking, focused on exercise, eating well, and keeping busy at work. The divorce proceedings are ongoing. Despite Kat's resistance delaying things, my lawyer assures me it will be finalized soon.